The pack came for blood but found their pups sleeping on an omega's chest, and the alpha yielded. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main characters. The night was heavy with tension. The air felt thick, almost suffocating as the pack gathered outside the gates of the Omega's home. Adam, the alpha, led the group with his usual stoic composure, his piercing blue eyes scanning the surroundings as his packmates shifted uneasily. They came for blood, for control, for power. But as they entered the territory of the Omega, the unexpected happened. The air shifted. The tension that had built up for days seemed to dissipate in an instant. Inside the small, humble dwelling, Ava, the Omega, lay on a simple bed with two pups curled up beside her. Liam and Charlotte, small and vulnerable, both of them fast asleep, their breathing gentle and peaceful. Ava's chest rose and fell with the rhythm of sleep, her soft features relaxed, a serene expression on her face. Adam's heart, usually as hardened as the mountain peaks in the distance, softened at the sight of her. His eyes softened too, though only for a brief moment. He had come here expecting a fight, expecting resistance. Instead, he found himself staring at the picture of peaceful vulnerability. The pups had been completely unaware of the pack's arrival, wrapped in the safety of their guardian's embrace. Adam's gaze lingered on Ava, her gentle features contrasting sharply with the world of chaos and brutality outside her door. The pack had come for blood, but what they found was a moment of tranquility, one they hadn't expected. He swallowed hard, the weight of responsibility on his shoulders pressing down on him. His pack looked to him for guidance, but for once, Adam wasn't sure what to say. How could he order an attack when this peaceful scene before him spoke of something deeper, something he hadn't anticipated? The tension in the air was palpable, but this time, it wasn't from impending violence. It was the heaviness of a decision waiting to be made. Adam's mind raced. Should he respect the sanctity of this moment and withdraw, or should he follow the mission that had brought him here? The pack waited, sensing their alpha's inner turmoil. Adam stood frozen, caught between his duty as an alpha and the strange pull of something else that had taken root in his chest. This wasn't just about territory, power, or dominance. Something had shifted. Something inside of him had changed in the presence of Ava and her pups. And as the alpha stood there, unsure of what to do next, he realized that he had never felt more conflicted in his entire life. Ironically, the pack's arrival had brought a silence that was almost deafening. Adam stood motionless, his gaze still fixed on Ava and the two pups curled up on her chest. The others in the pack were equally still, unsure of what to do next. This was not how things were supposed to unfold. The mission had been clear: seize control, assert dominance, and take what was rightfully theirs. But none of that seemed to matter now. The peaceful scene before them created a dissonance so sharp it made the very air feel thick with confusion. Ava, who they had all been told was nothing but a weak, vulnerable Omega, was instead an embodiment of calm strength in that moment. Adam's chest tightened, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years, something between admiration and guilt settling over him. He had come here expecting resistance, perhaps a fight, but what he found was entirely unexpected. The pups on her chest, so innocent and unaware, further complicated his mission. Their gentle breathing seemed to echo in the stillness, a reminder of what was truly at stake. Adam's heart, usually unyielding, softened further. The truth was, he had never seen an Omega quite like Ava before. His entire life, he had been taught that Omegas were meant to submit, to be docile and weak. But Ava was different. There was a quiet strength in the way she lay there, so completely at ease, as if the world outside didn't matter to her. And yet, it was precisely that world, his world, that threatened everything she held dear. The thought gnawed at Adam, the tug-of-war between his sense of duty and his newfound respect for the woman who lay before him. Was she just another pawn in the game? Another territory to claim? Or was there something more? He could feel the heat of his pack's eyes on him, each member waiting for his command. They were anxious, restless, sensing the alpha's hesitation. Adam took a deep breath, steeling himself. He could not afford to appear weak, not in front of his pack. He was their leader, the one who set the example. Yet, in this moment, he found himself questioning everything he had been taught, everything he had believed in. How could he continue to lead them if he no longer believed in the very principles that had brought him here? With a heavy heart, Adam slowly moved toward Ava, his boots making barely a sound on the floor. The pups stirred slightly, but did not wake. The faint sound of their peaceful breaths was like a soft melody in the quiet room. He stopped at the foot of the bed, watching Ava's face. She was beautiful, though she hardly seemed aware of it. There was a calmness to her, an inner peace that radiated even as she slept. A part of Adam wanted to reach out, to touch her, to confirm that this was real, that he wasn't imagining the pull he felt toward her. But he knew better than to act on impulse. He was an alpha, and alphas didn't give in to impulses. They made decisions, they led. Yet, here he was, struggling to make sense of it all. For the first time in his life, Adam questioned the very essence of what it meant to be an alpha. And as the minutes ticked by, he found himself taking a step back, away from Ava and the pups. The air seemed to shift again, this time with an undercurrent of resolve. Adam knew he couldn't let his feelings dictate his actions, but for the first time, he wondered if there was more to leadership than just strength. Perhaps it was time to rethink what it meant to lead, to protect, to be an alpha. Ironically, the room had become a battlefield of sorts. But instead of weapons, the weapons were emotions, confusion, hesitation, admiration, feelings that had no place in the world Adam had spent his entire life in. He had been taught that the world was simple. Alpha led, Omega followed, Beta stayed out of the way. And yet, here he was, questioning everything. Ava lay there, still unaware of his presence, the two pups curled up in peaceful slumber. The sight of her, calm and serene despite everything, tugged at something deep within him. She was different from what he had been told. He had expected weakness, fear, submission. But instead, he saw something far more dangerous, an undeniable strength, a power that had nothing to do with physical dominance. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what he was feeling. Was this a test? Was the universe playing some cruel joke on him? Or had he simply misjudged Ava, as he had so many others before? The pack was still waiting. They had been trained to follow his lead, and now, more than ever, they needed him to make a decision. His heart was heavy with the weight of it. He knew what they expected of him. But now, with Ava's presence affecting him in ways he had never imagined, he didn't know if he could fulfill those expectations. Slowly, he took a step back, feeling the eyes of his pack on him. He could almost hear their unspoken thoughts. What was the alpha going to do? Would he act like the leader they expected? Or would he falter? Ava shifted slightly in her sleep, a small sigh escaping her lips. The pups remained undisturbed, still wrapped in the warmth of her embrace. Adam's gaze softened as he watched her. There was something incredibly peaceful about her, something that seemed to radiate out and fill the room with a quiet, almost hypnotic calm. The pack was here for power, for control. But in this moment, Adam felt like he had stumbled into something far more important than that. He was no longer sure what he was supposed to fight for. His entire life, he had believed that alpha meant dominance, strength, and control. But this woman, this Omega, was showing him that there was another kind of strength, one that wasn't about force, but about heart. Adam's thoughts swirled in confusion. What was it about Ava that drew him in so completely? Was it her vulnerability, her ability to be so completely herself in a world that sought to tear her down? Or was it the way she seemed to effortlessly protect the pups, the way she cared for them? With such tenderness, without fear or hesitation. For the first time in his life, Adam felt a deep sense of uncertainty. He had always been confident in his ability to lead, in his ability to make decisions that would benefit the pack. But now, the future seemed unclear. He wasn't sure what he wanted anymore, let alone what he should do. The decision wasn't easy. He was supposed to be the one in control, the one who made the rules, the one who could not be swayed. But as he stood there, watching Ava sleep and feeling the weight of his pack behind him, Adam realized that for the first time, he didn't know what the right thing was. The line between right and wrong, between strength and weakness, had blurred in a way he had never experienced. The room seemed to grow even quieter, as if the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting for him to make his choice. It was a decision that could change everything. And as he took one last look at Ava, he knew he couldn't make it alone. He needed to understand this new world, this new dynamic, before he could ever hope to lead again. The silence in the room grew heavier with each passing moment. Adam stood at the foot of the bed, his gaze still fixed on Ava, who remained unaware of the tension surrounding her. The weight of the decision before him felt almost unbearable. His pack, the ones he had led for years, waited for his command, yet Adam's mind was elsewhere. It wasn't that he didn't understand what was expected of him. He did. He had always known his role. He was the alpha. He was the one who made the rules, who held the power. But today, in the presence of Ava and the pups, everything felt different. The world outside this room seemed distant, almost irrelevant. His mind drifted back to the moment he had first set foot on this land, to the mission he had set in motion. He had come here to take control, to assert his power over an Omega who had no right to defy him. That had been the plan. But plans, Adam realized, didn't always unfold the way they were intended. Ava, the Omega, was nothing like he had imagined. She was strong, resilient, and her connection to the pups had shaken something deep inside him. He had come here expecting to conquer, to bend her to his will, but instead, he found himself struggling to reconcile the feelings she stirred within him. Adam wasn't used to this, being unsure. The uncertainty of it all gnawed at him, threatening to unravel the carefully constructed world he had built. How could he lead if he couldn't even decide what the right course of action was? How could he demand respect, loyalty, and submission from his pack when he wasn't even sure what it meant to be an alpha anymore? He had always believed that power was everything, that strength and dominance were the true markers of leadership. But Ava had shown him a different kind of power, a quieter strength, one that came from within, not from force. He could feel the pull of her presence, and he knew he wasn't the only one who felt it. His pack was waiting for him to lead, to give them a direction. They had been trained to follow, and now they needed their alpha to guide them. But as Adam looked at Ava, he realized that the very concept of leadership he had clung to for so long might not be the answer anymore. There had to be more to it than just strength. There had to be a balance, a deeper understanding. He could feel the weight of his pack's expectations pressing down on him, but the weight of Ava's quiet strength seemed to hold him in place. The moment stretched on, as if time itself had slowed down. Adam's heart raced, his thoughts spinning in circles. He had come here with a clear goal in mind, but now that goal seemed distant and unimportant. All he could think about was the strange connection he felt to Ava, the pull he had never experienced before. Was this what it meant to be an alpha? To feel the weight of others' lives so deeply, to question everything in order to protect them? He didn't know the answer, but he knew one thing. He couldn't make this decision alone. He needed to understand this new dynamic, this new world, before he could hope to lead again. The realization hit him like a wave, and he stood there for a moment, breathing in the stillness of the room. As much as he hated to admit it, he needed Ava, and more than that, he needed to understand her, to understand this world that she represented. Adam took a deep breath and finally made his decision. He would not act in haste. He would wait, reflect, and learn. The time for confrontation had passed. It was time for understanding. Ironically, the silence had given way to a heavy stillness, one that hung in the air, suffocating yet strangely calming. Adam stood in the same spot, still unsure of what to do next, his mind tangled with emotions he had never before allowed himself to feel. The room was quiet except for the soft breathing of Ava and the two pups. They were so peaceful, so unaware of the tension that had built up around them. The pups shifted slightly in their sleep, their little forms nestled against Ava's chest, their small breaths like a gentle reminder of what Adam had come here for in the first place, to claim dominance, to seize control. But now, the idea of doing so seemed almost alien to him. As Adam stood there, contemplating his next move, he felt an overwhelming sense of confusion. His instincts as alpha told him to act, to assert his power, to take what was his. But something about the quiet strength of Ava, her vulnerability, and her fierce protection of the pups made him hesitate. How could he disrupt this peace? How could he bring the violence of his world into a place so filled with warmth and tenderness? For the first time in his life, Adam found himself questioning everything he had ever known about strength, power, and leadership. He had always thought that being alpha meant showing no weakness, making decisions without hesitation, leading with force and resolve. But Ava, this Omega, had shown him another kind of power, a power that came from kindness, from protecting those who needed it the most. Adam felt a strange sense of admiration for her, one that he couldn't quite explain. It wasn't the kind of admiration he felt for other alpha leaders, who commanded respect through fear and intimidation. No, this was something deeper, something more personal. He wanted to understand her, to understand how she had the strength to protect the pups with such tenderness. He wanted to know how she could remain so calm, so composed, when everything in his world screamed at him to fight, to dominate. Slowly, almost unwillingly, Adam began to step back from the bed. He couldn't stay here forever, caught between the pull of his old instincts and the strange new feelings Ava had awakened in him. The pack was still outside, waiting for his command, their expectations clear. They needed him to lead, to make the decision that would set the course of their future. But as Adam stood there, the decision seemed impossible. How could he continue down the path he had been on when it no longer felt right? He had always believed that an alpha's role was to be unyielding, to always act with certainty and strength. But now, in the presence of Ava, in the presence of these pups, he realized that there was more to leadership than that. Leadership wasn't just about power, it was about understanding, about protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. Adam's gaze lingered on Ava for a moment longer, and for the first time, he felt something he had never allowed himself to feel before: doubt. Was he truly the leader his pack needed, or had he been wrong all along? The realization hit him like a wave, overwhelming and sudden. Maybe it was time for a change. Maybe it was time for him to stop leading with brute strength and start leading with his heart. The thought was unsettling, but also liberating. He didn't know where this new path would lead him, but one thing was certain. He couldn't continue pretending that the old ways were the only way. Ava had shown him that there was another way, a way that didn't rely on dominance, but on trust, compassion, and understanding. Adam took a deep breath and turned away from the bed, his mind finally made up. It was time to face his pack, to explain the decision he had made. He didn't know how they would react, but he knew it was the right choice. It was time to let go of the past and move forward, to become the leader he was meant to be. The air outside was cool, and the tension that had once filled the room had now shifted into something more subtle. Adam stood at the doorway of the small dwelling, the pack behind him, waiting in silent anticipation. His decision had been made, but the weight of what he was about to do still pressed heavily on his chest. He had always been the one in control, the one who gave the orders, the one who made the difficult decisions. But today, everything had changed. Today, the rules that had defined his leadership seemed irrelevant. The world he had known for so long felt distant, as if he was standing at the edge of something entirely new. He glanced back one last time at Ava, still asleep with the pups in her arms. The peacefulness of the moment was almost unbearable, and yet, it was in this very stillness that Adam had found the clarity he had been searching for. He had come here to take control, to conquer, but instead, he found himself confronting a much deeper truth. Leadership wasn't about domination or strength. It was about understanding, about making decisions that would benefit everyone, not just the powerful. It was about protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. Adam's heart swelled with a mix of emotions he had never allowed himself to feel before. It was fear, yes, but also something else. Something he could not quite name. He felt a deep sense of responsibility, not just for his pack, but for Ava and the pups as well. The very same instincts that had driven him to conquer were now pulling him towards something else: compassion, protection, and understanding. He turned away from the door and walked back into the room. The pack, sensing the shift, fell silent. They watched him closely, awaiting his next command. Adam stood there for a moment, his mind racing, but for the first time in what felt like forever, he didn't feel the need to rush. He had made his decision, and he knew it was the right one. Slowly, he walked over to where Ava lay, her chest rising and falling with each gentle breath. The pups were still nestled in her arms, undisturbed by the world around them. Adam crouched down beside the bed, his heart heavy with the weight of the decision he had made. Ava stirred slightly, but didn't wake. For a long moment, Adam simply watched her, his thoughts racing. He couldn't explain it, but something in him had shifted. He had come here to lead with strength and power, but now he saw the value in something entirely different. He reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from Ava's face. She looked so peaceful, so unaware of the world outside. It was in this moment, with her and the pups, that Adam realized he had been looking at leadership all wrong. Leadership wasn't about forcing others into submission. It was about guiding them with understanding, about offering protection to those who needed it most. Adam stood up, his mind clear. He turned to face the pack, who were still waiting for him to speak. They were eager for direction, for the next move, but Adam knew that the next move wouldn't come with force. It would come with patience, with compassion, and with the understanding that sometimes the strongest thing an alpha could do was to listen, to learn, and to protect. He took a deep breath, his voice steady as he addressed his pack. We're not here to conquer. We're here to learn, to understand, and to build something stronger. It's time we stop fighting for dominance and start fighting for each other. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. For the first time in his life, Adam felt truly at peace with his decision. He had changed, and in that change, he hoped to lead in a way that would create a future for his pack that was different from the past they had known. A future built on trust, understanding, and, most of all, protection. The pack stood in silence, the weight of Adam's words still hanging in the air. The usual restlessness that marked their presence had been replaced with something else, something unspoken but undeniable. Adam felt the eyes of his pack on him, their expectations clear, but this time, there was no anger, no challenge in their gazes. Instead, they were waiting for him to show them that this new path, this new way of leadership, was one they could follow. Adam stood tall, his chest filled with a mixture of uncertainty and resolve. He had made a decision, but it was only the first step. The true challenge was showing his pack that what he had said was not just a fleeting thought, but a commitment to change. He glanced once more at Ava, her peaceful slumber a stark contrast to the world outside. She and the pups were untouched by the turmoil that had gripped the pack for so long, and in that moment, Adam understood why. They weren't fighting for dominance or power. They were fighting for survival, for the future. His mind drifted back to his earlier thoughts. Leadership was about more than strength and control. It was about protection, understanding, and most of all, trust. Adam knew that the pack needed to trust him, not just as an alpha, but as someone who could lead them toward a better future. He had to prove that the changes he spoke of were real, that they weren't just empty words. We have a choice, Adam spoke again, his voice firm yet calm. We can continue down the path we've been on, or we can make something different, something better. But it will take all of us. No one will be left behind. He looked directly at his pack, making sure each of them understood the gravity of what he was proposing. This was no longer about asserting dominance. It was about building something together. For the first time, Adam felt a shift in the pack's energy. They were no longer looking at him with skepticism or uncertainty, but with something else. It was trust. Hesitant, perhaps, but growing. The thought both thrilled and terrified him. He wasn't sure how this would play out, but he knew one thing for certain. This was the right direction. Adam took another step toward the center of the room. He wasn't going to force anyone to follow him, but he was going to give them the choice. And that, in itself, was a revolution. For so long, the pack had followed the old rules, rules that were based on fear and power. But Adam was showing them that there was another way. It wasn't about overpowering each other. It was about supporting each other. Adam turned to face Ava again, his gaze softening. She had no idea what was happening in the world outside her small, quiet space. She had no idea how much she had already changed him. But as he stood there, he realized that the world was changing, too. And it wasn't just because of him. It was because of her and the strength she embodied without ever raising a finger. The strength that came from love, from caring for others, from the quiet bond she shared with the pups. It was the kind of strength that Adam had never fully understood, but now he saw it clearly. It was the strength that could unite his pack, if they allowed it. We will protect her, Adam continued, this time with more conviction, and we will protect each other. We will build a future that isn't ruled by fear, but by understanding. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. The room was still, the weight of his words settling on everyone present. Adam knew this wasn't the end of the journey. It was only the beginning. But as he looked around at his pack, he saw the first glimmer of something new, something hopeful. And for the first time in his life, Adam felt like he was on the right path. The pack may have come here expecting to take control, but in the end, it was the quiet power of Ava and the pups that had shown him a new way forward. And it was a way he was determined to follow. The moment Adam spoke those final words, the room seemed to hold its breath. The pack, who had stood in silence until then, began to shift uncomfortably. Adam could feel their eyes on him, assessing, wondering if they could truly trust what he had said. For so long, they had followed the old ways, the traditions of dominance and power. To change that, to ask them to see things differently, was no small feat, but Adam stood firm. His chest was heavy, his heart beating faster than he was used to. This wasn't the leadership he had been taught. It was something entirely new. Something that came from the heart, not from force. The pack was still, but Adam knew the moment of truth was fast approaching. It would take time to fully gain their trust, but it had to start now. He couldn't back down, not after everything that had happened. He turned to face Ava one last time. She was still asleep, the two pups resting in her arms, completely unaware of the shift that was occurring outside their small world. Adam felt a strange pang in his chest. He had come here to conquer, to seize control. But in the presence of Ava, in the presence of the pups, he had learned that real power didn't come from taking. It came from giving. He reached out, his fingers lightly brushing the back of her hand, as if he were reassuring himself that she was truly there. He wanted to protect her, to ensure her safety, but he also knew that she was the one who had shown him what true leadership really was. The tenderness she had for the pups, the way she cared for them without hesitation or fear, was a kind of strength that Adam had never known. As much as he had once believed that power was the ultimate goal, Ava had shown him that protection, love, and understanding were even more valuable. It was a realization that shook him to his core. Adam stood up, turning to face the pack once again. The weight of his decision still lingered, but it was no longer as suffocating as it had been before. The decision had been made. Now, it was time to lead. He cleared his throat, his voice steady but filled with determination. "This is the beginning of something different," he said, his gaze sweeping over the group. "No more fighting for dominance. No more thinking that we are better than anyone else. We stand together, as equals, to protect what matters most." The pack shifted again, the energy in the room changing. Adam could see the uncertainty in their eyes, but there was something else there too. Something that had not been present before. Hope. Maybe they didn't fully understand yet, but they were willing to follow him, to trust him. And that was all he needed. He turned back to Ava and the pups, his heart swelling with a sense of responsibility. He would do whatever it took to protect them, to protect this new world he hoped to build. He wouldn't fail them. Adam took another deep breath, feeling a new strength within him. It wasn't the same strength he had relied on before. It was quieter, softer, but it was no less powerful. It was the strength of knowing that he was on the right path, even if it was uncertain. And for the first time, Adam felt truly at peace with his decision. The path ahead would not be easy, but with Ava and the pups, with his pack by his side, he knew they could build a future unlike any they had known before. A future where strength was not defined by dominance, but by unity and compassion. He looked at his pack, his voice resolute. "We move forward together. No one left behind." The pack nodded, some still hesitant, others more sure. But Adam could feel it, the shift. And with that shift came a new beginning. The world, for the first time in his life, felt full of possibility. The days that followed were filled with an air of quiet change. Adam had made the decision, and the pack was beginning to understand the new direction he was leading them toward. The old ways, the ones that had been built on dominance and fear, were slowly being replaced with something else. Something more meaningful. The transformation wasn't immediate. Nothing worthwhile ever was. But the seeds had been planted. Adam watched as his pack members interacted with each other in ways they hadn't before. They were still strong, still powerful, but now there was a sense of unity among them. They looked out for each other, protected each other, and for the first time in a long time, Adam felt a sense of hope for the future. He spent more time with Ava, learning from her, watching how she interacted with the pups. It was remarkable how effortlessly she cared for them, how her calm and nurturing presence seemed to bring peace wherever she went. Adam had always thought that leadership came from strength, from being the one who commanded. But he was beginning to see that true leadership came from understanding and compassion, from being able to see the needs of others and stepping forward to meet those needs, no matter the cost. Ava's quiet strength was a constant reminder to him of the new world they were creating. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it was built on trust. Over time, Adam began to feel more at ease with his role as alpha. The fear and uncertainty that had once consumed him were fading, replaced with a new kind of confidence. He wasn't leading out of obligation anymore. He was leading because he believed in what they were building together. He had found a new sense of purpose, one that didn't rely on the old ways of ruling with an iron fist, but on a foundation of mutual respect and understanding. One afternoon, Adam found himself sitting beside Ava, watching the pups as they played in the sun. The light filtered through the trees, casting soft shadows on the ground. It was a peaceful moment, and Adam felt a sense of peace he had never known before. He turned to Ava, his voice soft but steady. "Thank you," he said, his words simple but full of meaning. Ava looked at him, her eyes warm and understanding. "There's nothing to thank me for," she replied, her voice gentle. "We're all part of this together. We're all building something better." Adam nodded, the weight of her words sinking in. It wasn't just about him. It was about them all, working together, learning from each other. And for the first time, Adam truly understood what it meant to be a leader. It wasn't about controlling others or forcing them to follow. It was about guiding them, supporting them, and most importantly, showing them the strength that comes from caring for one another. As the days turned into weeks, Adam continued to lead with this new understanding. His pack was stronger than ever, not just because of their physical strength, but because they had learned to trust each other, to trust him. And it was that trust, that bond, that would carry them forward into a future unlike any they had known. A future where strength was not measured by dominance, but by unity. A future where every member of the pack mattered, where they all had a role to play in protecting each other and building something lasting. Adam had come to Ava's world seeking to conquer, but what he had found was something far more powerful than anything he had ever imagined. He had found love, he had found trust, and most importantly, he had found the kind of leadership that could change the world. And as he stood there, watching the pups play, Adam knew that this was just the beginning of something extraordinary.